as well. And these are just simple ways to just love on people. Are you ready? Okay. We're gonna end today on financial empowerment. This is not financial planning. This is looking at financial empowerment as a way of how do you move out of poverty? How do you move people from where they are today financially to somewhere where they can thrive independently in the future? So we're looking at some of the aspects of that and then some of the ministries that might come around that. So low-income households, if they are low income, these are some of the things that they experience. They have an increased risk of health challenges. They have lower academic achievement. And this isn't to say that low-income people are not smart. It's not that they're not intelligent, but they may not have the money to afford the extracurricular activities. They may change schools more frequently that interrupts their learning. They may begin work early and have less time for study if they're working after school. So there's a lot of pieces to this. This isn't to create stereotypes around it. Even the risks of health challenges, they may not have access to health care, affordable health care. A lot of our food that's cheap is not healthy. So they're doing the best that they can, but these are some of the things that happen because they don't have the resources to be able to buy into some of the other pieces of it. They have increased risk of mental illness. It's actually extremely stressful and discouraging to be low income and to live in poverty. So there can be more depression, more anger, more abuse, more divorce rates. There we go. Some of those child and spousal abuse, alcohol use, just from you're living in a space. Sometimes we do the chicken and the egg where we blame people. Well, you're an alcoholic, that's why you're in poverty, but often it's the other, and we need to be careful of how we view people. They also have a lower life expectancy, and that's, Christ came to give us life and to have it more abundantly, and living in poverty is not taking us to that space. So we have to look then at what creates household financial stability. And it's a very simple formula of income plus assets minus liabilities. So your income is your monthly income, something that comes into your paycheck or other streams of income that come in. Your assets are the things like your savings accounts, your house, if you have a business, a retirement account, something that's holding wealth or holding value. And then your liabilities are your bills. What do you owe other people? Debts or regular bills, utilities. And so when we look at that equation, then we're asking how do you balance that? And it's the assets is the piece that is typically left behind. A lot of our poverty alleviation is focused on income, and you will not get anybody out of poverty based solely on income. And if we look at it this way, if you think of income maintains consumption, so that's a stream going through your land. It comes in, it goes out. You get your paycheck, you buy your groceries, your utilities, this, that, you pay all your bills, and then it just goes right out the other side of your property, in and out. But it's that pond there. If you can divert a little bit of it into a pond, it's that pond that holds the value. So when there is a drought, when you have lost a job or you're between jobs, that you still have the resources to continue to live and function in your household. If your car breaks down, what do you do if all of the assets, all of the income has flown out of your yard? You need the pond. So it's that idea of the stream versus a pond, and we need to help people build a pond for them to be stabilized. Assets are the reserves. They cover the unexpected emergencies, and they tide us over between times, because sometimes that river dries up. So these can include home ownership, education, business ownership, frankly, things that people hold. So even knowing the language around you. When you talk about English language learning, even that can help people to have what they need to go out and earn more income. It can also be insurance, helping people to protect their assets. And the effect of what assets do for you, it's not just the finances, but it smooths consumption. So you have money to meet household needs regularly. So it kind of smooths you out. You have better physical and mental health. I mean, it's kind of amazing, the research around this, what an asset will do for you. You actually have better mental health. It increases your sense of control over your life. So college graduation rates, they did a study surveying high school kids, so juniors I think it was, that intended to do a 4-year degree. And then they said they took all the different information about them, and then after 6 more years, so they gave them 5 years to finish the degree, and they looked at the kids who finished the 4-year degree, who successfully navigated that degree. And the single most important variable was if those students had some kind of asset of their own. If they had a savings account, it did not need to be a college savings account, it didn't need to be a large savings account, but they owned something of their own, and that changed their mindset to say, I can do something in the future. When you are living paycheck to paycheck, day to day, it's hard to think ahead. So just having an asset changes the future orientation. So you start to do goal setting. If you don't know if you can reach that goal because you don't have 2 dimes to rub together, it's really hard to do that, but we sometimes expect that when we're helping people. Oh, why didn't you think ahead? It's just, we don't when we're in that situation. So they have higher academic success. You're going to stabilize a house. They're going to stay in one place. The kids can go to school and be consistent. Higher income. So it actually helps you, if you have an asset of a car, it helps you to travel further for a job. It helps you to get to your job on time more consistently, less absences, so you end up with higher income rates. Increased civic engagement. People are just more invested in their community when they have assets to their name. There's something that changes in us when we have assets. And then it stabilizes expenses. So if you think of home ownership rates versus rent, it's hard to do either one right now, but your home ownership, your mortgage payment stabilizes. You know what that is. In 10 years, your rent will probably go up. So you have a little bit more control over the expenses from day to day and month to month. So if we then look at U.S. poverty rates, 13% of U.S. households live in income poverty. And you'll notice we'll start looking at the difference between income poverty and what that means. That means they're just not bringing in the income. And of course, statistics are statistics. So you have to drill down sometimes and look at what does that mean, because it's 9.9% of those households of white households are living in poverty. 22.9% are black. Of Native Americans, 25.8% are living in poverty. And I know we're in a part of the country where I think that is more relevant for you. 12.2% of Asians live in poverty, and 21.3% Latinos live in poverty. And then you look, sometimes there's just so many different ways to look. We forget about people if we don't drill down into the statistics sometimes. 19.4% of people with disabilities are living in poverty, and 11.3% without disabilities are living. So you start to see that it's not just across the board that we have these issues. And of course, we're in New Mexico, so I wanted to give you your statistic as well, as 16.8% of people in New Mexico live in poverty. But then we have to look at the assets, because we were just talking about assets. So 19% of U.S. households are asset poor. So asset poor is referring to can you survive, say all of your income stops, can you survive for 3 months at the poverty level? And don't forget, for one person, poverty level's what, about $11,000 a year? So it's a pretty low bar to reach. 19% of US households are asset poor. They cannot do that, which means they are living from paycheck to paycheck. They're barely making it. So if they lose their job, if they lose a stream of income. So sometimes we look across the board and say, well, these are the poor people. There's a lot of people that are very close to poor, very close to poor. 27% of US households are liquid asset poor. So when we look at asset poor, that could be a home ownership. But if you lose your job tomorrow, I can't sell my house fast enough to pay my bills. So then they need to know, do you have an emergency fund that will cover even 3 months of expenses at the poverty rate? So if you weren't living at the poverty rate before, you're still not going to make it. But that number then goes up to 27% of US households are liquid asset poor. Does this paint a little bit different picture of poverty? That we can't just look at income, but we need to look at what assets are there and how are we using them. And then if you look at the who is liquid asset poor, it even shows a little bit more with the different demographic groups and who is living in those situations. So there's a lot more, I think, that we see who are living very vulnerably in our communities due to their income and their asset holdings. And this is the asset poverty rate across the nation. Just a map. It's always nice to see things a little different ways. And so this is asset rate, poverty rate, and you'll see New Mexico there is at 19% of asset poverty rate. So it puts your poverty rate up a little bit further and elevates some of these issues that we see happening. And you'll start to see how some of these issues interrelate when Gladys is talking about children who can't read, and so their income goes down, and it's going to start to cycle into all of these other issues as well. New Mexico, financial assets and income. And I highlighted a few. Asset poverty rate there is 19%. Difficulty paying for usual household expenses, that's up to 27% at the US and 29.5% in New Mexico. Liquid asset poverty, 40% in New Mexico are living liquid asset poor. That's a lot of people. So if something happens, it just destabilizes a lot of what we're doing. Reading proficiency, I thought I'd throw this in since I knew that we were talking about reading today. Reading proficiency at the 8th grade level. Are they reading proficient in 8th grade? And you have, that is small, 18.4% of people of kids in New Mexico in 8th grade are reading proficiently. So that's not a high number. I was surprised. I didn't realize these were so low across the board. Because really, even in the U.S. data is 30% are reading well. And New Mexico is the state data. So I pulled it specifically for New Mexico versus the U.S. And I learned something else on there towards the second one down. They are small. It's when you clip, you can't make it, I can't adjust it. But disconnected youth, do you know what disconnected youth are? No. I did not either. Disconnected youth are young adults ages 18 to 24 who are living without, not in school, nor are they employed. So they're just there. In New Mexico, it is 20.5%. In the US, it is 12%. Across the board, it's 12. So there's a lot of kids out there at risk. And the mentorship and those pieces of just starting to knit communities back together and making a space for them to thrive. So how do we increase assets and how do we bring this stability? So what we're going to do for the rest of our time is just looking at what other people have done. What are some of the programs people have done that they found successful in taking people from this very vulnerable, volatile place to something that they can concentrate. As I tell you, like you said, Gladys, when you go up to someone's door and they've got kids and they've got laundry and they've got all this stuff going on and they're living with a little bit of chaos, they really aren't asking for a Bible study right now. You need to calm their life down and help them to get to where they're stable so they can go to that next level and say, let me think about other things. So when we look at some of the strategies, and these are just programs now, and they may work for you or they may not. We know that there's public benefits that people can apply for. The VITA program is the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. So this is in partnership with the IRS. I know you guys were talking a little bit about, how do we find a place? How do we? You work in partnership. When you're overwhelmed yourselves with work and family and all of our own responsibility, sometimes when we work in partnership, we don't have to carry the whole load. So the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, the IRS trains volunteers to run sites for low-income people to come and get tax preparation help. So you don't have to be a CPA. They walk you through, they provide the software for it. You do it online, everything is right there. It saves preparation fees. I think it was, what was the number? Oh, it was at least most, I don't have the statistic, but it was most low-income households use a paid tax preparer. So this is free to them, so you're saving preparation fees. And when you're living that close to the edge, $150, $200, that's a lot of money. So you can save that for them. They avoid tax time loans. If they're offering loans to get their money early, they can avoid those fees. And the earned income tax credit, most of our anti-poverty method strategies in the US are coming through the tax code. And one of those is the earned income tax credit. So if they have kids, they can get a refund, and it's a credit, it's not a deduction. So they can actually get a chunk of money. About, 20% of eligible recipients do not claim that because they don't understand it, they don't know it. So this is a way to make sure that they are getting the things that they need from their taxes. So this is one, they usually start in the fall to say, I want to be one of these, because you're actually operating in the spring coming up to April 15. So, and I tell you, when you go over people's taxes, you know a lot about them at the end of the day. And very vulnerable place, and you know if there was a divorce and if there's kids and this, and you're having this in your church and people are sharing, so they have already opened themselves up, they've already given you trust just by being here. So it's a kind of a beautiful place to then have somewhere if somebody wants prayer, or if you're having a vacation Bible school, or we have children's programming, and just to make them aware that this is a safe place for them. Another one of these is Bank On, and I put on Bank On, I don't know how you say it, Burke, because it has to do with Albuquerque. So this is what you guys call this here. This is actually the New Mexico version. It was just Bank On in Washington State. I don't know. So it took me a little longer to find this. 19% of the population are either unbanked or underbanked. So if they're unbanked, they have no bank accounts. If they're underbanked, they may have just a checking account and not the savings. But we know it's hard to save if you don't have if you don't have a savings account. If people just have a savings account, they're more likely to save and build up that asset. In New Mexico, it's actually 24% are unbanked or underbanked. Just having that little bit a lot of the reasons people give for not being banked, and I think you're going to find this here with a lot of the Latino population, is they may be from somewhere where it was not, banking was not the same. It was not a safe place to put your money, or you had to have more money. It's a different system here. They may not trust it. They may not think they have enough money. They may just be unfamiliar. They may not realize what it is, or they could be intimidated by it. Banks are not easy places to walk into if you've never been in one. You're just kind of standing there in the lobby. What do? Most of the materials are written at about a college level reading. So if you're living in this place, in this state, then that's not an easy place to be. They may have a poor banking history, frankly. They may have bounced too many checks. They may have done it. So you can come together around them, though, and help them understand not just banking, but how to manage their finances and how to use that resource. So this is the city of Albuquerque. Oh, there, it came through. Oh, no, just making sure I didn't have anything else up there. This is actually from the city's website, has information on Bank On, and one of the resources that you'll find with that Bank On initiative is financial empowerment was a national initiative. So there's a lot of coalitions throughout the US. The one here, what they'll do with the Bank On is they will make a chart of banks and the products. So if you have a poor banking history, can you apply which products are available to that person? What do they need to do? Which ones have what are the fees on wire transfers? What are the fees, do you have to have a minimum amount? So people can look through this spreadsheet and find the one that fits them. So it's an easy way to say, I don't need to go to everyone. I can just go and say, I want this account. And it brings down that bar. And if you have credit unions, or I don't know what they do, but having a Bank On, you probably have resources. A lot of our agencies, if they were doing some of the things that we're going to look at next, they would bring the representative from the credit union on site, and they would just sign people up. They didn't have to go to the bank and overcome those barriers of intimidation. So you can lower that bar. If it's somebody working in that Bank On space, they probably are going to be amenable to something like that. Job fairs. This is down in Texas at a church. Their first job fair, they work with WorkSource, and other agencies. So WorkSource is bringing in the employers. They don't have to go out and drum up all of this participation. WorkSource brings in the employers, they bring in people, and then the church advertises to their neighborhood. So it's a pretty low bar. They just have to set up the tables, and then people come. Their first job fair, they had 200 job placements successfully. So that changes people's lives. And one of the women from that, I don't think she's in the picture on the right, but that's where she started working, was the Department of Corrections. She came to that first job fair. She got a job. She comes back now with that employer to recruit other people, and she's also now a deaconess at the church. So you change people's lives, and they take notice that maybe there's something here that you care. Community events. I think Gladys mentioned health fairs. Very similar, but around financial issues. So those are 3 that were in the Seattle area that different agency did. You'll see we'll start the one on the left, the free financial fitness day. You notice free because we like free, and we want to make sure people know, because a lot of information around finances costs people. So you want to make that clear. It is free. There's door prizes. They have their time. This brings in people from all sorts of financial related. You can have credit counselors, job and resume builders. You can have booths where you're just sitting down with people pulling their free credit report and going over it with them. People have found the identity fraud. Just say, let me just pull this. It's free to you. Let's pull it today. print it out, go over and say, oh my goodness, somebody's stolen your identity, so let's deal with that, and helping people work through that. It can be the counselors, the credit counselors. What are your rights as a consumer, and are there people harassing you? What do you do? So just helping people in those spaces. Questions about tax returns. If you were a VitaSite, you might be able to help them. Consumer rights, avoiding scams. Some banks, these are the types of events that a bank might come out to and just sign people up on site. Veterans benefits, college scholarships, signing up for health care, how to get your GED, giving them information. You can just invite people to come and do that around the room, in the gym, tables up, and then these other agencies are doing the work, but you are hosting it and you are becoming that safe space for them. I think the middle one is on a specific type of assistance, community transitions, and the other one is on, so it can be around veteran services, it can be however you want to form it, what resources you are tapped into and who you can bring. First-time home buyers, there's a lot about buying a home that is very mythical. It's very intimidating, and people got themselves in a lot of trouble. You know, the recession in 2008, 2009, that was a lot around bad home mortgages. So you can help them understand so they can make wise decisions. If you get bad advice, a lot of those, that is one where the disproportionate people who lost their homes were people of color. And they were people because the lenders, the mortgage broker came into the neighborhood speaking Spanish and sold other Spanish speakers a bad loan. So people need to be educated so they can not be vulnerable to that kind of exploitation. Because people trusted them, and they didn't know what they were saying or what the details were, but they trusted them. So we need to empower them to be able to make those decisions. These types of events are a pretty low bar because you don't have to be the expert. You just need to know them. You just need to know them. But if you want to know more, financial coaching is an incredible, this is just fun. We know financial planners or financial advisors who tell you what to do. They look over your things and they say, you should do this, this, this. Coaching is actually a little bit different because it lets the individual drive the conversation. What is it that you want from your finances? And then let's look at the options. So it goes back to what we were talking about last night with the asset-based development, where you're allowing them to say, this is what I've done. Have you ever gotten advice when no one even asked you what you had tried yet? And they're just telling, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. But it's like you don't know, and you almost feel like you're arguing. And then they get frustrated with you because, well, I tried to help you. And they brush you off. And it's like, but none of that was helpful. So this is stopping first. It encourages, it guides, and it supports. It explores options together. We identify and prioritize goals together. We help identify barriers. What is keeping you from doing this? And then it highlights their strengths and builds their confidence. What have you done that worked? Has anyone ever asked you that when they were trying to give you advice? Let me say something that I've done well. And it does not tell you what to do. It doesn't make decisions for you. It's not, people need to be able to work through their own problems. So this is the type of tool that a financial coach will use. This is the wheel. Sometimes you see this in life coaching, but you fill in each slice of the pie. So you'll see savings up there on the right top. And you fill it in as far as your satisfaction level. So when you think about your savings, how far would you fill that piece of the pie? Would it just be a little bit? Would it be, I'm happy with how much I've saved? Where am I? How is my debt? How is my budget going? Do I want to be able to give more to charity? Where are we? Your retirement, is your retirement fully funded? Do you need more? So you just go around, they fill it out for themselves, and then you walk it through with them. I see this one is really high. What happened there? You've done some really good work. What does that look like for you? This one looks low. What would it mean if you had it filled up 3 more lines? What would that look like for you? So you're letting them inform the conversation, and you're just walking them through a decision-making process of their own. What could you do to increase that retirement piece? What could you do? So there is training for this. I know Thrivent does training for church-based people. That is a faith-based, it comes from the Lutheran Church or out of the Lutheran Church, but it is a faith-based financial management investing group. So that is another option. That's a little bit more intense with people, though. It's not just bring everybody in, but you're starting to provide one-on-one services, which builds more relationship. So this, if you think these things are kind of, how are you going to get out of poverty based on just these little things that you're going to do? This is an actual budget sheet of somebody who came into workforce in Longview, Washington, and this was her actual budget when she started. So she was making $19,000. She got a little bit in child support, so a total income of $21,444. She wasn't claiming any of her benefits through the tax code, so nothing received there. Her expenses in housing, you can see all of her expenses there, $31,000, almost $32,000. And then she did not have a bank account. So she was paying $380 just to cash her paycheck. And this is annually, but $380 just to get her own money from the system, from her employer. She didn't have enough for furniture, so she was renting furniture, so that's another $1,800 a year, and then emergency loans. So she was visiting payday lenders. So she had another $596 just in fees for the year. So you can see at the bottom, she is $13,000 in the hole annually, $13,300. So workforce development, she was underemployed. She had certification to be a vet tech, so they got her the job that she would need. So that raised her income. It didn't, and it also, though, you'll see at the check cashing, it raised her fees for check cashing, because she now has, it's a percentage of your check that they charge you to cash it, so she got more money, so they got more money too. So she's now at $27,000, almost $28,000 in income, but she's still, so she moved from $13,000 in the hole to $7,000 in the hole. Yes, so it's a step. So then they took her through the same place. They started to implement these at workforce. So this isn't their job, but they said, let's bring these aspects in. So they walked her through benefits, claiming her benefits. So they added income through the earned income tax credit. She had one daughter, so that was $3,200. The child care tax credit, so her daughter was in child care while she was working. So she got that tax credit for another $1,600. And then the child tax for almost $3,000. So now she's up to $35,000 a year. Pretty cool. And then there's also help and benefits for housing and utilities, child care, and health care. So now her expenses have gone down to $24,000. So we just flipped her budget right there. So now she has $6,000 extra per year. But they were not done. They got her into regular banking system. Regular banking. So now she's making another $23 a year on interest. But you know, when you're living here, that's something. That's something. And then her check cashing went down from $500 to $60. And her furniture, I think she got, if I remember right, she got a small loan to just purchase the furniture. So she was no longer renting furniture. She purchased it. So she still had some furniture charge, some finance charges, but it went down to $70. And then emergency loans and payday, she was getting out of those. So emergency loans, some of the credit unions offer products that are very low loans to get people out of payday lenders. Because most banks, you don't go in and get a $500 loan. So there's some credit unions that will specifically offer that type of product so people can get out of that. So all of that went way down. So now she's at $8,000 extra a year. So it starts to change. It can be very simple steps that change what people are able to do. And it's hard to change. We've been talking about this a lot today. It's just hard to change. So I'm going to go through just some behavioral principles. These are from behavioral economics. These are studies that show that we can be deterred from taking action by seemingly very small hassles. It doesn't take much to stop us when we're talking about change. And the point here is this is everybody. This is all of us. This isn't a poor people thing. This isn't a rich people thing. This is a human thing. It does not take much to stop us. Procrastination. We tend to mismanage our time and consistently wait until the last possible moment to do anything. This is everybody. Everybody. But it shows up when somebody comes to your center and they're about to be evicted tomorrow. And you're like, why didn't you come sooner? But this is normal. So we often say, well, they weren't very wise, they weren't very whatever. But it's all of us. But a lot of us have the cushion that makes it not so drastic of consequences. We have cushions enough in our assets or whatever, so we don't have the same problem at the end of it. Once we fall off track or suffer a setback, we tend to let ourselves indulge even more. Is that true? Have you had a little bit of ice cream? And you say, well, my diet's done anyway, I'll just eat the whole thing. Or I might as well go ahead and I'll get back on track tomorrow. This is normal, but you really see where it can affect somebody negatively if they're living on that edge. The ostrich effect. We tend to avoid information that shows us our poor choices or behavior. We don't like to see ourselves as foolish. None of us do. So we tend to just avoid that information. Scarcity. When resources are scarce, we often tunnel our attention and focus only on the current challenges. So I can't see, this goes back to that future orientation. I can't see tomorrow when I don't have enough for today. I can only focus, and our attention just starts to narrow down. So we may not see all the opportunities around us because all I can see is this issue in front of me. Last night we talked about the widow who visited Elisha asking for help. And that was the value of his question, to say, what do you need? Because all she could see was she was about to lose her sons. So there may have been other opportunities, but she could not see them. So we got to meet people where they are. The reward substitution. Immediate rewards appeal to our impulsive nature and can be used to motivate behaviors that are beneficial in the long run. So this is something you can use to leverage people towards good behavior. So you saw on the one of the flyers, it said door prizes. You know, you're trying to get them in for a long-term purpose, but we're just going to give you a little gift and get you here for a short-term, immediate reward to just get something good. We need something that we need successes along the way. And then the ability bias. We tend to give undue weight to what easily comes to mind, which are often vivid or recent events. So we tend not to think through very far. We just say, well, this is what we've done, we'll do it again. And we don't take that time to be creative. And we all do it. We certainly do it like in church ministries. We see it in church, we see it in our lives. But when it comes to somebody in a low-income situation, it's just going to be really hard because all they've done or all they've seen around them are certain behaviors and certain decisions that may not be successful for them. So here's some additional resources. Prosperity Now, that financial scorecard, they produce that every year. A lot of the information on New Mexico came from there, so that's a national organization that looks at assets and how to build assets and what people need to build assets. The FDIC Money Smart curriculum is a financial education piece. This is a free curriculum. It comes in like 30 different languages. So there's one for you, there's one for you. And it's free. It can be pulled apart into different of the units. They don't need to be all together. One of the things that this does, I know a lot of churches do like Financial Peace, and Financial Peace is a very good program. One of the challenges is it's geared a little bit towards middle class. You have to have enough money to start paying off your debt to work that program. It's assuming you're in a bank. It's assuming you have a bank account, where FDIC Money Smart curriculum actually has a lesson on banking and what it is and how to use it. So this does have pieces that go back, take a step back, and help people catch up to what might be the next steps. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, it's a good site, but one of the pieces, it's consumerfinance.gov, and then I have /complaint or /ask CFPB or it's a publication. They have free publications there. So you can order a case of things on debt, little workbooks that you can just hand out to people. So there's resources that you can provide for free, bring in other people, and keep it very, very simple for yourselves, because we only have so much. And this is New Mexico. Share New Mexico is one of the financial empowerment site. Northwest Native Asset Building Coalition. I just, in anything that you're doing, coalitions and community groups around that issue are going to be your friend. You're going to find other resources there. You're going to find information so you understand the issues. You need to understand the issues, whether it's literacy, whether don't rely on the North American Division to help you understand Albuquerque resources. We are giving you a broad brush, but you have to go deep and get to know who is doing these things in your local area. This is part of the community assessment process, is to talk to people. And this is ministry too, because you're forming relationships. You're sitting in meetings with people that will never come to your church. And you get to just share who you are, and we want to help, and we're going to do it well because we care, and that's going to make a statement to them too. So that is the presentation. I know I'm moving because I know we're tired, but I want to make sure we have it. If there's any questions or comments, or just even your own experiences of what this has meant for you, or does this even resonate as true? Does this seem like something and we're bringing you a lot of ideas, so I know you're not going to do them all tomorrow. But it gives you some ideas of where to go. And earlier, when in the tutoring program, you were talking about how programs can start to build on each other. You're working with the children, now you can start to add the parents. These people are probably also needing some financial, not just assistance, but help them actually become independent. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I don't know, you just opened my eyes to a lot of things today. Because I like the fact of like the first home buyer. We could hold conferences. We have realty people here. We got people that they work with that can help them, like give them a list, what they need to do to improve their credit, etc. Yeah. I like that. And I like the, what was it, where you can help them do their taxes?
Oh, the
VITA.
Yeah.
That would be great to get them here too. We could just, like you just gave me all kinds of ideas. And then we can also feed them. And
yeah, you start to build a family of ministries, like a network of ministry around people. Because a single point of, like, say, just food or just this, when you start to come around them and treat it in a holistic way.
Because I was talking to them earlier and they were telling me, because I said, well, when we do the food bank, why don't we have like like little corners or sections where we can do like blood pressure checks and the tobacco, you know how we go to the state fairs and do the heart, whatever we do about tobacco and all that. But they were telling me that the Roadrunner Food Bank they have their rules and regulations, and I'm like, well, how can we go around that? But I didn't even think, I was thinking, well, we could get people to bring cans, but that would be really, really hard. These other things, we just have to use our resources, Leroy, and I know a lot of people who...
she sees you.
No, but think about it. You could, I mean, there's so much potential. I don't know, you just open it. Thank you.
You have a lot of the resources here, and not just in the room. You don't have to just do it for everybody, but like you say, you have all sorts of, connections. Use your connections and make it workable, because I know I could hear one person feeling the stress of, oh my word, I have to go to work, I am doing overtime, but it doesn't take that much more. It still is work. I mean, it's still work, and people will know that it's this church. Even if you have a site at the library, people know that it's the Seventh-day Adventist Church that's coming in to facilitate. You're rubbing shoulders with all sorts of people in that forum. Yes, sir. Oh. It is. Do you really? You do taxes? Yeah. And these are not the complicated tax. No. You're kind of a hero at that moment, aren't you? You're kind of a
gave me ideas.
hero.
I never even thought of that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yes.
So when I was young, I went through counseling, and they told me, write down 10 goals that you want to succeed at. So I did that, and so I went home. I told her I want to get these goals done. First one was to get a house. Well, anyway, we were like, okay, well, let's go see the bank, see what we can do. Well, we owed money to the IRS. It was quite a bit. So the bank told us, pay that off, and we'll help you get into a house.
We owed student loans.
Oh, student loans.
Which IRS would.
Yes. Well,
They're
they
gonna
would take it away.
get involved.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in 1 year, we were able to pay all that off, because all our income, we just put it, in the bank, paid what we had to pay. And so we went back to the bank. They got us into a home. But from there, we started learning how to take care of our own finances. And I remember this back in the 80s, they had a lot of financial advisors that would go to your house and tell you, oh, let us do your books for you and stuff, help you out, make more money. Well, the thing is she's a very smart lady.
Good.
And when they went through all our stuff, I know, because I'm not that. Anyway, they looked through all our stuff, and they were like, well, we really can't help you. That's because she was on it.
She was already doing it.
And
Yeah.
any way we
Yeah.
could make money, she would do it. Even that VITA program, we'd go there, and they'd do all our taxes for free and everything.
Offers free they have tax preparation here locally for people. I looked it up, under 60,000 or 65 and older, they're going to do your taxes for free anyways.
Yes.
So that's through this CNM.
Yeah.
Used to be TBI, but now it's CNM.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say is, like, last night when you were speaking, it inspired me to the things that I can do to help others. And I was thinking of the foster care and what leads to what they lead to is the homeless and the trafficked individuals, and it just broke my heart. And so that's something that I want to do. So maybe, because I'm looking more at retirement now, but I also work for Social Security. So we have talent here in this church. And so working there has helped me to realize that people don't put money away. They just live for the moment, and they don't realize that Social Security was never intended to live off of. And you have to put money away so that but I also was inspired last night that maybe going to the homeless and helping them apply for those benefits, because I know how to
Yes.
do that. I know how to help
Yes.
them apply, and maybe they wouldn't be homeless if they could just get the help. You know, they have a lot of mental issues out there, but just getting help
Just knowing
and
what
serving
there
that
is.
community to help them to get a monthly check and get them off the streets.
Just the next, yeah, and there's a couple programs, you know, that kind of that benefits fair. And it can be focused on homelessness, it can be focused on veterans and bring in specific for that group. There's someone in the DC area who will go around on the street and look for people who have been incarcerated and they're now living homeless, and say, okay, around incarceration, how do we help you, and do one just on that. So just looking at a focus of what do we want to do, and you're right, goals change everything, and most people don't know how to set them. Most people don't know how to do it.
They told me, look at it twice a month, you know,
Yeah.
to see how close you're getting to them goals.
Yes, and a lot of the ones that I've worked with, they're making more resolutions. They're making kind of, I just wish this. It's like you need a goal. You need to have something. You have to be able to check off a goal. And if you can't check that off, you don't know. At Christmas, it was the niece saying, you know, I just want to sleep more. I need better sleep. And it's like, well, how do you know when you've achieved this? You know, you've got to state it differently so you can do it. And that.
Financially, you got to make that list, like you had it clear. Make that list, follow that list. Don't break
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
But I know we won't go and say, oh, we're gonna buy a car unless we can't, you know, unless we can afford it. And then we try and make sure that we get the lowest interest rates, you know, because you're gonna
Yeah.
save money if you have low interest rates.
yeah.
Even when we go to the store and buy furniture, we try and buy it within the year, because you get 0% interest. You save
Yeah.
a lot of money within that
Yeah.
year.
Just knowing some of those strategies and setting goals according to those strategies is going to do a lot for you. Yeah, you guys have a lot of really, you got some good people here. I mean, you got some, what, real estate, Social Security. I'm like, oh my goodness, you guys can do things. Yes, sir.
Yeah, like a lot of people don't realize then, you know, there's a lot of organizations, including a nonprofit organization that they can go to get help if they are not allowed to afford for themselves. I myself do a lot of research. I have 2 LLCs that I worked on myself, and also do my own taxes by doing researches, you know, and all that stuff. Also, I somewhat helping people with the EO process, because I have a 7 years, 8 years experience dealing with the EO. So EO, Equal Opportunity Employment. So I've done all that too as well, you know. But there is a lot of resource that people can look into. Of course, the church can also provide those researchers to get those people that need help, you know, for this church to, you know, rely on the church so that they can come to on a regular basis, you know, as also as a member too as well.
Yeah, you named like about 3 different tables at your financial fitness fair.
Yeah.
Equal opportunity and the VITA. It's just that information that people don't. Information is power, and they need to be empowered to understand how to navigate. It can seem very mythical when you look at somebody with wealth and you think they're just different than you when you're living in poverty. There's something different about us. I don't know how they do it. So you're trying to break down those myths and say we're all the same, but they had different opportunities. This is, you know, I mean, there's a lot of books, you know, think like a wealthy man, or pay yourself first. And it's like, really? I thought I should pay my utilities. And I could never figure out, what are you talking about? So, you know, to really contextualize it for somebody in that situation, to say some of that advice is just kind of foolish. Yeah, it's like, well, I really do feel the need to pay my rent. So, but I remember that one always threw me, yes.
Okay, what I got out of this myself was the fact that, you know what, the church itself, we get together here, and I know, because I'm not a new member, but I'm a new Adventist, about 6 years or so. And always the biggest challenge that we've had, okay, is filling up the church. There's not enough people here, or there's old families that have been here forever, and they're the only ones here for the most part. But what I got out of this right here is if we actually had, and I think Priscilla was mentioning it too in the background, job fairs. If we could have a job fair here, you draw people to this church, number one.
Yeah.
And they'll start seeing what their church is, and we can sort of feed off that, or they can feed off that themselves. And at the same time, to see that we're helping the community, okay? Yeah, she mentioned, pointed at me because as a realtor, but at the same time, I can see where a lot of people are first-time buyers, or they don't know how to actually establish credit. You have A, B, C, and D buyers. They don't even know what that is, okay? They don't even know what credit scores they have in most cases.
No.
Because they're never really taught that in school, and that's the problem with some of the school system nowadays. They don't teach the kids how to be financially strong. And they teach them, well, just go bankrupt. The worst thing that they've actually taught almost all our people is just take advantage of the bankruptcy system, and they find themselves hurt, and they're paying high interest rates for years, like Brother Albert was mentioning some things, okay? But first-time buyers, you can get bankers to come in here too, because they'll sit down and talk to them personally. Yeah. And again, the most important thing to me, I'm exposing my church to some people here.
It's becoming a different sort of place.
Right.
Because you're combating those, I've heard some reputations in different communities that we've had, and that they had to overcome a lot. We've done some silly things in the past, but they just persist and say, no, this is who we are. And when you come into this space and we're not pushing anything at you, we're not a cult, we're not all of this, these weird things, then we just become your friend, just mingle together. We care about you. We know that this will be of service to you, and it can start to come together. Oh my goodness, working with finances with kids. They can go open their own savings account. You can just walk them down with their first $5 and give it to them, and let them open that up. And there's some fun things people have done around the schools, going into the schools and doing different programs to teach financial literacy. One of the nonprofits in our area, they actually went into their local school. Kids had to rent their own desk. So if they got behind on their rent, they did get evicted and had to go sit. But there were also kids like, if I clean the board, can I get extra money? I mean, they had jobs and they got paid, and they were all different, so they got to understand that whole system. There's some fun. I think it was a credit union or a bank. They actually gave them little checks, little fake checks that they could write out their rent check in. So it was very fun. Lots of fun stuff. Yes.
I just think, like, with all the things and the talent that we have, also the main thing is to meet their needs and to build that trust with them, because if they don't trust us, but we have to be relatable. And so, back in the 80s when we weren't doing so well, me and my husband, and learning from that, learning bad credit versus good credit, and keeping that and holding on to that, and then relate with the people. Like, I've been there, I understand,
Yeah.
and so be able to build that trust with them and relate with them. I think that we can really help the community.
Yeah, and they don't know who to trust. So having the
we're not gonna take
connections that you guys have, that you're bringing in quality people. You're not bringing in somebody who's going to exploit them or take
And we're not
advantage of them.
taking anything
And you're
from
not
them. We're
taking,
giving them.
Yeah,
Or giving them the resources or the ways.
yeah. And if you're part of the coalition, then you're going to see all those resources around the table as well, to say, we're going to host this, and see just what is happening in this area and where people are at. But you'll make a lot of those partners that can come together with you, and that when you get those logos up there, you start to get a little more credibility too. That trust goes up a little bit, because it's like, okay, the city of Albuquerque is willing to come to this, so there must be something. It's not a complete fly-by-night operation.
When and my wife and I, we moved to Santa Fe, we started renting an apartment and we had a lot more money coming in than when we were at Andrews. So
Yes.
we were like, oh, spending here, spending there, and then we started looking at our spending habits, and we're like, wait a minute, we're spending a whole bunch of money on all these things when we could be saving that money to buy a house. And look, we're just throwing money to these apartments, and we're not getting anything out of it. And so we took a seminar with HomeWise. It's a New Mexican. Well, it's here in New Mexico. They have HomeWise, and they talked to us about budgeting and buying a house and all this stuff. And so we made a budget. My wife didn't have credit because she was born in South America, so she didn't have. But she had her Social Security number, but she had never built up credit, and so she didn't have credit. So how we were going to buy a house? They said, well, just add her name to your cards and use them, and her credit went right up. And so we were able to buy our first house in Santa Fe, and that just really changed everything. People, having an education or an understanding of how finance works and how you can save and where you are spending, that's huge. And it can really change the way you live. You don't just spend all the money you get, and I think that this is great. I mean, I'm glad that some people are like saying, "Oh, we can do that." So it's just not me saying, "Hey guys, we got to do something," but people are actually excited and saying, "I think we can do something like that." So thank you, thank you for presenting these topics. We have another.
Because if you've never lived in a home, if, say, your parents were in poverty or you were living with grandparents, I mean, if this is generational poverty and you've never experienced home ownership, you have no idea what that looks like or how to navigate that, and at what point you can do it. I mean, it's just, you had enough sense to at least say, hey, wait a minute, maybe something new is here. So I think it was my husband who did that, and I was very reticent, but he was the one who brought that idea to us. So I'm like, I don't know about that. It seems very daunting if you don't really know it. So it's just having a safe person to walk by with you. Yes, sir.
I don't know what, can you tell us what community groups and coalition groups are? I mean, just a snippet thing. I don't want to take up anybody else's time, but you obviously know more about it than I do.
What they are in general?
Community groups and coalition groups,
Just a snapshot? That's actually a really good question. When there is an issue in your community and you identify who cares about this issue, and different groups start to come together. So a coalition or a community group is coming together around a specific topic.
And give one example
Of each one. So you might have a homeless coalition where different groups, usually a mayor or somebody from the government's going to be in there, because this is their problem. All of these are their problems. The financial empowerment coalitions, we would have church groups, we would have financial counselors, the senators for the state, because they're trying to make policies. It was from the coalition that they opened up avenues for people to advocate for certain policies. So we put restrictions on, the state passed legislation to put restrictions on payday lenders. How many times you could renew the loan. I think they put it at a cap at 5 times, and you can only charge 300% interest. I mean, it was still pretty, but it was a fight to even do that. So there's a lot of, you can experiment and learn from each other and see what's going on. There were some studies, but it's coming around. It's just groups, different groups, and it can be very diverse. Disaster response, we have the VOAD groups, the volunteer organizations active in disaster, where you have the Red Cross, the Adventists, the Mennonites, the Catholics, the Lutherans, the Buddhists, you've got everybody who uses volunteers, so we can coordinate. So there's coordination, there's learning, there's all sorts of things that can happen in that space, and you just know what's going on, and you know the other players, so you're working in concert with people rather than just saying, we're going to save the world, And other people are saying, well, we were doing that, whatever it is you're doing. You want to work with people, or it can be kind of offensive. 'Cause I've seen that in a coalition meeting too. A new group came into town saying, we want this, and we're going to work on this. And they're just like, what do you think we're doing? So it was kind of offensive. So it just gives you that ability to work together.
I think that's, yeah.
That's good.
I think
Very
we're,
good.
any other questions, comments? Because yeah, I noticed people are starting to leave.
Yes, it is done.
Like they're saying, oh, it's nap time. So thank you so much, Colette. Thank you so much for coming out and sharing. You know, I didn't realize the source of the resources that they exist, even here in the state, you know, for the different websites we have, the presentations, so we can refer back to them. I'm hoping that we'll be able to plug in some stuff. We have, just so you know, we took some time last year to go over the importance of having bridging events. And when you're talking about bridging, you're talking about connecting with people. You're talking about making that connection. We also talked about, in my presentation, when I spoke to the church, I talked about mingling. You know, not necessarily inviting people to the church, but going out. Because coming to a church is a tough thing for people. Mm-hmm. Coming to a new environment, you know, there's stigma, there's challenges. They think, oh, that's a whatever, you know. And so actually just mingling with people is a huge thing that we want to think about. And yeah, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and close with a prayer then. Father in heaven, thank you so much for bringing us out here, for allowing us to have these topics. They're such a blessing for us. Some things to think about, some things to consider, and just to really start planning and thinking how we can reach the world we live in for you, Lord, to show them your kingdom, to allow them to see your love, Lord. We pray that you can use us. In Jesus' name, amen.